The first thing people noticed about him was not his face, or his age, or even the worn-out clothes that hung loosely on his thin frame. It was the way he stood at the edge of the arena, frozen between courage and fear, clutching a folded piece of paper like it was the last thing anchoring him to the ground. The arena buzzed with noise, thousands of voices layered into one impatient hum, but around the boy, there seemed to be an invisible silence. No one expected anything from him. And that was exactly why everything was about to change. His name was Eli Carter, and he was 12 years old. He had walked 3 miles that morning from the shelter on Jefferson Street to the downtown Civic Arena, his shoes barely holding together, soles flapping softly against the pavement. Inside his pocket was a bus token he didn't use, because saving it felt safer than spending it. Inside his chest was a heart beating so hard he thought it might echo through the metal detectors at the entrance. He had never been inside a place like this before. Bright lights, giant screens, a stage big enough to swallow his entire world. Eli didn't belong here, at least, that's what he had been told his whole life. He belonged to back rows, to quiet corners, to places where nobody noticed if you disappeared. His mom used to say he had a gift, back when she was still around, back when the apartment had electricity and the fridge wasn't always empty. One day, she would whisper as he sang softly beside her bed, "People will listen." After she passed, those words became something he carried like a secret, fragile and easily broken. The event was a national talent showcase, streamed live across the country. Singers, dancers, musicians, people with trainers, stylists, and confidence filled the backstage area. Eli had none of those things. He had signed up using a borrowed phone at the library, typing carefully so he wouldn't make mistakes. When he got the email saying he'd been selected for an open audition slot, he read it over and over until the librarian gently reminded him that others needed the computer too. Now, standing behind the curtain, Eli watched contestant after contestant walk on stage, greeted by applause and flashing lights. He watched judges nod politely, sometimes smile, sometimes whisper to each other. He watched dreams rise and fall in a matter of minutes. With every performance, his stomach tightened. He told himself he could leave. No one would stop him. No one would care. But then he remembered his mom's voice. "Sing like the world is listening." When his number was called, there was a brief pause. The host glanced at the card again, eyebrows lifting slightly. "Next up," he announced, "Eli Carter." A few people in the crowd clapped out of habit. Others leaned back in their seats, checking phones, adjusting jackets. The judges looked up, curious but distracted. Eli walked onto the stage, the bright lights blinding him for a moment. He squinted, his heart pounding, his hands shaking. He took his place at the center of the stage. From the first glance, the arena made its quiet judgments qualified. His jacket was too big. His hair hadn't seen a proper cut in months. His hands were rough, his posture uncertain. One judge leaned forward and asked gently, "Hi there, Eli. Where are you from?" Eli swallowed. I'm from here. From the city." "And how old are you?" Another judge asked. 12, sir." A murmur rippled through the crowd. The judge smiled kindly. "And what will you be performing for us today?" Eli unfolded the piece of paper in his hands, though there was nothing written on it. It was just something to hold. "I'm going to sing," he said softly. "A song my mom used to love." The judges nodded. One of them reached for the button to start the music, but Eli hesitated. His voice came out barely louder than a whisper. I don't have music." There was a pause. A small one, but it stretched. One judge cleared his throat. "That's okay," she said. "Whenever you're ready." Eli took a deep breath. The kind of breath you take when you've been holding everything in for too long. When he opened his mouth, the whole arena froze. It wasn't loud. It wasn't flashy. It was pure. His voice rose into the air, unaccompanied, unguarded, carrying something that no microphone could manufacture: truth. The first note wasn't perfect, but it was honest. And then the next one followed, stronger. And the next. Within seconds, the hum of the arena disappeared. Phones lowered. Whispers stopped. Even the judges leaned forward, eyes widening. Eli sang about loss. About hope. About a small light that refuses to go out, even when the world is dark. His voice cracked in places, but instead of weakening the song, it made it real. Every word sounded lived in, earned. This wasn't a performance. It was a confession. In the crowd sat a woman named Margaret Lewis, a retired schoolteacher who had come to the show with her granddaughter. She had planned to leave early to beat traffic. But now, her hand was pressed against her chest, tears welling in her eyes. She didn't know why this boy's voice felt like it was reaching directly into her past, reminding her of students she couldn't save, of moments she wished she could redo. A few rows down, a man in a tailored suit, an executive who rarely felt anything during talent shows, found his throat tightening. He had grown up poor too. He had forgotten what it sounded like to be this raw. Eli sang like he had nothing to lose. Halfway through the song, his eyes closed. He wasn't in the arena anymore. He was back in that small apartment, sitting on the floor beside his mom, her hand weak but warm in his. He sang to her like he couldn't back then. Like he was telling her everything he never got to say. When the final note faded, it didn't end the way most songs do. There was no immediate applause. There was silence. The kind of silence that means something has landed too deeply for sound. The judges sat motionless. The crowd didn't breathe. For a brief moment, the entire arena was connected by one shared feeling, awe. Then, slowly, someone stood up. Then another. And another. Within seconds, the arena erupted into a standing ovation so loud it felt like the walls were shaking. People cheered, cried, clapped until their hands hurt. The judges wiped their eyes openly, not bothering to hide it. Eli stood there, stunned. He hadn't expected this. He had hoped, quietly, that maybe he wouldn't be laughed off the stage. He hadn't imagined this. One judge leaned into the microphone, voice unsteady. "Eli," she said, "that was extraordinary. Do you know how powerful that was?" Eli shrugged, embarrassed. "I just sang," he said. "Like my mom taught me." Another judge asked softly, "Where is your mom now?" Eli hesitated. Then he answered honestly, "She passed away last year." The crowd responded with a collective, gentle sound, something between a sigh and a sob. "I sing so I don't forget her voice," Eli added. "And so I don't feel alone." That was the moment something shifted. This wasn't just about talent anymore. It was about humanity. The judges didn't need to deliberate. All four of them pressed the golden buzzer at once, showering the stage in light and confetti. Eli flinched at first, then laughed, a small, surprised laugh that made the crowd cheer even louder. But the most unexpected moment hadn't happened yet. As Eli stood there, overwhelmed, the host stepped forward. "Eli," he said, "there's someone who wants to meet you." From the side of the stage emerged a woman in her early 30s, eyes red, hands shaking. She introduced herself as Rachel Morgan, a social worker who volunteered at the Jefferson Street shelter. "I've seen you sing before," she said, her voice breaking. "In the dining hall. In the hallway. I knew the world needed to hear you." Eli's eyes widened. "You work there?" She nodded. "And I want everyone to know, this boy shows up early every night to help clean tables. He gives up his extra food to younger kids. He sings not for attention, but to make people feel better." The arena erupted again, louder this time. Rachel turned to the judges. "He doesn't just have a voice," she said. "He has a heart." That night, something incredible happened. Donations poured in. Scholarships were offered. Music teachers reached out. But the most powerful gift didn't come in the form of money or contracts. It came from the people. A retired vocal coach offered free lessons. A family offered Eli a place to stay until something permanent could be arranged. The shelter received enough funding to expand its programs. One song had created a ripple effect no one could have predicted. Backstage, Eli sat quietly, still holding that folded piece of paper. Rachel knelt beside him. "You okay?" she asked. He nodded slowly. "I think so," he said. I didn't know people would care." Rachel smiled through tears. "They always did," she said. "They just needed to hear you." Weeks later, a video of Eli's performance had been viewed millions of times. People all over the country shared it with captions like "This restored my faith and never judge a book by its cover." But Eli didn't read most of the comments. He was busy going to school again, practicing his singing, learning that hope could be something real, not just a word. One evening, as he stood on a small stage at a community concert, Eli looked out at the crowd. He wasn't afraid this time. He knew something now, that even the smallest voice can stop the world. That compassion can change lives. That sometimes, when a poor kid opens his mouth, It's not just a song that comes out. It's a reminder of who we all are, and who we can be, if we choose to listen. And somewhere, in the quiet between notes, Eli felt it. His mom was listening. And the world was too.